All right, guys. In today's episode, you're going to leave this episode knowing how to do real estate part-time transition to full-time. We get that from a lot of our agents out there that are people that are thinking about getting into it. How do we do it? How is part-time even possible? You're going to leave this episode knowing that it is, how to do it, how to transition from part-time to full-time. So stay tuned. Welcome to the Agent Bridge podcast. We're your hosts, Brandon Baca.
And I'm Marl Hessen.
The Agent Bridge is the proven path to real estate success without the burnout. Okay, guys, part-time real estate. How do we do it?
Episode 20.
I can't believe we've made 20 episodes of this.
Yeah.
And we still have stuff to talk about. That's exciting.
What is it that most podcasts fail at 7 episodes? Is that what?
I don't know. I don't even know the statistics.
I read the statistic. I think it's 7.
Well, that just goes along with everything else. Most realtors fail right before the 2-year mark of the business. I'd probably wager a guess that most of them fail in their first year. It's just about consistency, doing it over and over and over again. So use our, if you go back and listen to our first podcast, they probably are just okay.
Yeah. I mean, and it takes a while. Like this snowballs a bit. Like I think probably people get discouraged then at the 7 episode mark that, hey, I don't have thousands and thousands of downloads. Like I must be doing something wrong. And
right.
It just takes a while. I mean, there's a lot of content out there.
Well, you got to build momentum. And the only way to build momentum is through consistent effort day after day after day. So, hopefully this can be an example to you that even though we had no idea what we were doing, getting into it,
just got started,
get moving.
Churned out the episodes and
try to improve as we go along. All right. So, a lot of the question, you want to talk about market update stuff?
Yeah, I think we should.
We've had a massive week from an economic standpoint and lots of fear, concern, anxiety, all of that stuff.
Yeah, so we keep saying we're going to do a market update from time to time, and we do it every time.
Yeah,
but I think now is a good time. The market's so volatile and changing right now. I think it's good to talk about. So, Silicon Valley Bank, Signature Bank collapsed this weekend and over the weekend. It's all over the news. What does it mean? Is 2008, recycling itself?
Right.
So, just a couple notes here. So, that collapse caused the 10-year Treasury to fall about 30 basis points. What does that mean for us? Well, rates fell about half a point.
Okay.
So they were up around 7 last week. They kind of hit that 7.8 mark. Now they were down around 6.5.
Okay.
Or I think I said 7.8. They went from 7 to 6.8 to 6.5. So the dip in about half a point, that's giving your buyers about 5% purchasing power back instantly.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's cool. So, and I think if rates dip below 6, which we don't know that they will, but all of this happening may cause the Fed to slow down the rate hikes, which could allow rates to dip, back under 6. And we saw the last time they did that, right around the first of the year, February, we had just kind of a little bit of a flood of contracts.
Right.
So could, spark some interest and, could
that stuff could be good for the real estate market, just generally speaking.
Yeah, and traditionally speaking, the third week of April is one of the hottest weeks for listings.
Okay.
So the timing could be right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we don't know that the Feds will make those changes, but I think a lot of people think that they will. Mm-hmm. They'll use this as kind of, and I don't want to say excuse, but use this as a reason to kind of back off their plans.
Right. Okay, so can I ask you, and you've had a lot of experience in the tech world. I mean, really most of your career has been in technology and around technology. From what I understand, Silicon Valley Bank is mostly tech startup, creditor for tech startups. A lot of those startups have money in there. We got emails from Realtor.com and OpCity to stop payments to Silicon Valley Bank.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, like, you being involved in that world, what does all this mean for the average agent, and what's the concern, and what even happened?
Yeah, so I think that's a good thing to talk about, and I think that kind of leads into what I was about to talk about, which is why this isn't 2008. So Silicon Valley Bank was a niche bank. They had about 211 billion in assets. Bank of America has like 3 trillion.
Okay.
So the Silicon Valley Bank was heavily invested in like prop tech, crypto, but they also were a mortgage servicer. So that does, I think you will see real estate markets kind of do a little bit of a dip in those tech heavy areas like Silicon Valley, San Francisco, kind of a lot of those tech areas.
Right.
So I think that is something to keep in mind. But the amount of assets this bank had is nowhere near what some of these other large banks have. And what we have been able to show this time around is that banks could sustain this. Like the Bank of America, they're all healthy, fine. And why this isn't 2008 is that buyers were heavily over leveraged and they were linked to a lot of subprime mortgages. Today, credit scores are higher, requirements are more strict.
Yeah.
Equity is at an all-time high. Like all these things protect us from what occurred last time.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things people fail to understand about the 2008 is you're right. People were over leveraged, so the credit scores and the requirements to get a mortgage were not really that. It wasn't very tough to get a mortgage.
No, if you want a good laugh, watch The Big Short.
Yeah,
it's hilarious.
Yeah,
and it's not it's not wildly untrue. Like a lot of it like happened. Like.
Yeah, so they would give a mortgage to anybody, and not only that, it was adjustable. These arms, so you're making low payments. They're saying, well, you can just refi before, before that payment hike hits or that rate adjusts. You can get a refi. So yeah, it was just a really weird time, and people were over leveraged. So the mortgage world and the appraisal world and all that is a lot different.
Yeah,
than it was then.
But with the fact that Silicon Valley Bank had a lot of mortgage servicing, it could be an opportunity for you to reach out to your clients and say, hey, I'm not sure if you heard, Silicon Valley Bank failed. You might have a mortgage servicer change and, drop them a CMA. Just use it as a touch point just to give them an update on what's occurring in the real estate market world.
Yeah. Let me take a break. Hey, guys, if you are a listener of this podcast, please do us a favor, like and subscribe to the podcast. If you would, it would mean a lot to us. The other thing is, we would love to see some comments on the video. So if you've got a question, you want to learn about something, or if you have any sort of thing that you want to discuss, pop that in the comments. All right, let's talk about part-time. And I will say there are a lot of, this is a, deal in the industry, or what's the word I'm looking for? There are a lot of naysayers around part-time people being in the industry. Which I think is interesting, considering that most agents are going to sell between 5 and 6 houses a year. So I would say the majority of agents are sort of doing this at a part-time level anyway.
Yeah.
Not that that's necessarily a negative. It's not. It's just, that's just sort of the reality. You've got this large swath of agents that are selling somewhere between, 5 and 10 houses a year, and that's fine. But you're not typically a real estate agent isn't putting in a 40-hour work week. I don't really know the difference, where somebody says part-time or full-time, other than because we have agents that sell 30 houses a year who work a full-time job.
Yeah. And
then we have agents that don't work a full-time job and sell 2 houses a year. So I don't know what the definition for people is, like what is considered a part-time agent. I think most people would say, hey, do you have another job?
Yeah. Or is this your family's primary source of income?
Yeah, it's a primary source of income. So
I think that's the only determining factor we can use for this example.
Right. So there's a lot of people who, really talk negatively about getting into the business part-time, or, maybe when you're talking to other brokerages, they're like, well, we don't want any part-time people here. And I just don't necessarily agree with that angle in attracting agents or in developing agents, because I think there are so many people who want to get into real estate, but want to make that transition over time. Like for me, my story is I did real estate part-time for 3 years while being a sales rep for a company in Oklahoma City. And, it was a source of extra income, but also I knew that I wanted to transition into real estate full-time, but I at the time had 4 kids. And so it wasn't a reality for me to be able to quit my job and jump into something full-time. So, I have a heart for people that are, would love to be a business owner, would love to have the freedom to make their own calls, to build their own business, to arrange the schedule the way that they want to arrange it. I have a heart for those people. So,
someone with
yeah.
great time management skills can get a lot done as a part-time agent.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I've just seen so many people do it effectively, quote unquote, part-time. And it really is about the quality of the individual and the quality of their, time management, skill development, things like that, versus just, hey, how much time do I have to do this? Now, I will say that there is something to be said for being able to focus, and we'll kind of get into that a little bit. But yeah, both of us started part-time before we jumped into this full-time. What was do you want to tell a little bit about your transition?
Yeah. So I started off as a real estate investor doing that on the side very early on, back in 2003, and had a full-time career in technology. At the time was living in Las Vegas, working for a casino company in analytics, and kind of progressed through that career. Wanted to move back to Nashville, did that, and continued on with my technology career, but was continuing to invest. So I was very, very interested in real estate as a whole. Like, I was an investor at the time, but just very interested in what could my life look like outside of the corporate world, and, kind of being a business owner. I was in a little bit of a unique situation where I wanted to look for a startup real estate company that I could be a part of, and I could affect change in, and I could drive kind of the future of what it looked like. So we met, and we started talking about what could that. Early on, I was just going to be an agent, just being a part-time agent. But as we got to know each other, just started to form that relationship and decide what could this look like as a full-time role for me.
Yeah.
And, we had some ideas. We, made some changes within the brokerage itself and started to form kind of what that future might look like. And here I am.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, that wasn't easy. I mean, I was leaving a career that I had built over, a 21-year span.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's never easy, to make that transition. And we can go ahead and talk about this, because a lot of people, they're starting out part-time and they go, I want to make this transition over time. When is the time right? And the reality of it is never right.
No, I mean, you could second guess that all day long. Like, I'm sure when you left the paint company, you're like, I could have stayed and got a couple more commission checks, or I could have stayed and got that one more stock vesting, or that one more this, or that one more that. But the fact of the matter is, you're not growing the new venture unless you dive into it full time.
That's right. Yeah. And so, and it's like, okay, well, I've got this part-time thing going on. I was like, you're right. But, in making that transition, I was like, I'm just going to have to jump at some point and make it work.
Yeah. And it's probably going to be rough at first. You're used to something probably more steady.
Yes.
Probably more reliable, probably more, predictable. But it's, if you are able to make the jump and you are to be able to build a business and a pipeline, it can be a lot more, it could be a lot better for your family, be a lot better for your mental health, and just overall, I think, could put you in a better situation in the long term.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk about the pros and cons of part-time versus full-time. And by the way, if you're wanting to get into it full-time right out of the gate, I think that's fine. But we want to be honest about what it's going to take to make it, what it's going to take to succeed, timelines, things like that. So we'll go through the pros and cons here. First, the part-time pros. Okay, so the benefit there is, number one, that any income you're making from real estate, it's not your primary income, so it's like extra income. And I remember
just the gravy
for me, like I think my first sale. I after splits, I think I made $1,000. This is Oklahoma, 2008. I was thrilled to get the $1,000. I was like, this is fantastic. I was like, I made an extra $1,000 and we can go to dinner or whatever. So that it's kind of like getting a bonus, versus you needing that money to live. So that's a benefit. The other thing is you have time to learn the business without the pressure of, having to know everything all at once. So you're not, again, since you're not dependent on this sale, like this listing selling, or you're not dependent on these buyers closing. And so yes, you may want to get that money, but you don't have to have that money to make it. And so it just makes it a lot easier to swallow some of the highs and lows of real estate if you're doing it part-time. So,
Yeah. I think you can also do your job better if you're not in a desperation situation.
well, yeah, that's what a lot of real estate agents that go into this full time without really much of a, savings or backup plan or anything like that, that pressure,
No one thinks clearly in those situations.
you're just trying to get the deal done.
And that's not bad mouthing anybody. It's it's hard. Like if you're, your back's against the wall.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
You're
hard.
just trying to get that deal to close. And so you'll, do things that are reactive versus thoughtful. So the cons are for part-time is that it's going to take longer to get momentum because you don't have as much time to dedicate to the things that drive revenue, like lead generation. You just don't have, that 2-hour block a day typically at the beginning of the day. So you might have to work it into a lunch break or work it into after hours and do appointments on the weekends and things like that. So that can be challenging because you don't have it just takes some time to get, it takes time to get momentum.
But I will say that almost everyone has more time than they think they do. And I'm talking to myself, talking to you, talking to everyone. Like you spend a lot of time doing things that aren't important, like flipping through Netflix, looking at your phone, doing these extra activities that don't amount to anything.
Yeah.
You have more, if you are to lay out your entire daily schedule very specifically in 15 to 30 minute time blocks, you have a lot more time than you think you do.
Oh, there's no question. And you need to be paying attention to what you give your attention to. I got a really good tip from a podcast this past week because I think, there's a lot of people out there like me who struggle a lot with, social media, getting attention, getting a part of my daily attention. And also, I've got social media I use for advertising and marketing and real estate and all that stuff. But it can steal time. It can take you down rabbit holes. And it was Mel Robbins' podcast. She said, look, social media is neither good or bad. It just is what it is. It said most people are just using social media in the wrong way. She said, if it's not making you feel good, if it's not like helping you, like you're not following people who are going to like help you or serve your greater purpose, or if you're getting negativity from it, you're using it wrong. She's like, go block, unfollow, whatever, people who, people or pages that aren't serving your greater purpose.
Yeah, great tip.
And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. So quit looking. So some of us get so addicted to, the negativity or wanting to see what somebody else is doing. It's like, yeah, get rid of that stuff. You can cultivate your social media to things that serve you.
Yeah. And just remember, people are only posting what they want you to see.
Right.
Don't think that someone who has this Instagram page, this Facebook page, and it looks like their life is perfect, that nothing behind the scenes needs a little work. Like
Right.
People are only posting what they want you to see.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So the cons again of part-time is going to take longer to get momentum, and you're going to be, a lot of times you're going to be burning the candle at both ends. It's going to feel like overwhelm when you've got transactions in the work. So if you ever have 2 transactions going and you're working a full-time job, you're going to have to deal with that new emotional, what's the word I'm looking for? You just have these you just have this maybe sense of overwhelm, and it's not. I mean, really, when you boil it down, probably you can get the things that you need done in about 5 minutes, or 25 minutes. But most people just let that overwhelm build and build and build. And really it's about organizing your thoughts and again, that time management piece to really achieve. So you have to basically become a more organized person, and that has to become your identity. So it's for some people, it's a real challenge to get there because they've been living their life in a sort of like, hey, I'm a 9 to 5 person and I get to shut off at 5 o'clock, or I get to shut off at lunch, or I don't have to take work home with me. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily bad. It's to set those things aside, but you have to basically become the type of person that can have several things going on and manage them effectively through thought processes, time management, things like that.
Yeah. You want to find something interesting about yourself, pull out your phone, turn on screen time, and take a look at that on a daily basis.
Yeah.
How much time you spend with that device in your face.
Yeah.
Like,
it's scary.
It's scary. And then, and I'm talking to myself too.
Yeah.
But take a look at that amount of time on a weekly basis and tell me that you couldn't sell a few houses if you devoted all that time into that activity. So there's time out there that you can find it. I used to tell people that in the corporate world who said I didn't have enough time to do this or do that. I was like, look at your phone. I guarantee you're spending a ton of time on that thing. Yeah. And a lot of it can be cut out. Now, some of it you're probably checking work emails or doing this or doing that, and that's fine. Like there's productivity stuff on there too. But there's just a ton of time that can be found throughout any given day to do anything you want to do, whether it's learn a new hobby, do real estate part-time, do this, do that.
Yeah, you just get so distracted. So, one of the most valuable things you have is your attention. Don't give it to things that aren't serving you.
And don't think that you have to sit down and complete something A to Z in a small block. Like pick it up, work on it, do, 3 or 4 things, 3 or 4 tasks that are assigned to lead generation or whatever it is. Drop your kids off, come back, do 3 or 4 more tasks. Like it doesn't have to all be blocked out for like a long period of time.
Yeah. All right, let's go to full-time stuff. So the pros of full-time is you do have more focused energy, or you can get more focused energy through doing it full-time, which will enable you to get momentum faster. But that comes with a caveat, which is I can't fix the timeline for someone's buying process, because like if I get the example that I use for realtors, I go, if I give you a buyer today, like if I go, hey, RL, here's a client that's ready to buy a house. Okay, let's say it takes a week for them to find something and locate it, and then somewhere between 4 to 6 weeks to close. So we're somewhere between 5 and 7 weeks to get a paycheck, and that's if I hand you a buyer right now. Okay? Ready to buy. Okay. You've got, and if you think about it, it's going to take time for you to build, to locate, source, follow up, close a client, before, and then you've got, again, that 4 to 6 week timeline. So, you're really I think at the fastest, you're probably 3 months out from getting a paycheck if you start this job. Maybe there's an exception to that if somebody's coming in and they're buying or selling their own house, or they got their real estate license just in time to list their in-laws' house. Okay, I'll give you those exceptions.
Yeah, there's always those.
Right, but for the most part, you're gonna looking at a minimum of 3 months and probably 6 months before you're getting that first paycheck, somewhere between 3 and 6 months. So I can say we can create more that falls out at that 6 month process than maybe someone doing it part-time. I can create more of it, but I can't change the timeline.
Yeah.
So from a full-time perspective, a lot of people go where they're like, I'm ready to get into this and I'm ready to start selling houses. And I go, okay, well, you need to be prepared that you're not going to make money for 6 months.
6 to 12 months of living expenses in the bank, number one.
Right. But most people aren't going to have that, And so that's why a lot of people do this part-time, is to make the transition. So yeah, it just is going to take some time to get it off the ground. And so we can, but the benefit though, again, of the full-time is, I can have at that 4 to 6 month time frame, I can have more falling out of the pipeline or more houses closing because of that focus energy if you're using your time correctly.
And usually that snowballs. Like if you're a full-time agent, once you hit that 6 month mark, if you're doing it properly, that turns into some pretty decent business for the last half of that year.
Right. The other thing is, and this is I wouldn't say this is necessarily part-time or full-time, but the learning curve for real estate is steep because a lot of it is situational. And so, that's why it's good to have a really good mentor with you. But for instance, there's so much stuff that you've got to learn right out of the gate. Not only do you have to learn, let's just say you learn how to make your phone calls and you set up appointments. And let's say you get a for sale by owner that wants to list. Well, first of all, you've never done a listing agreement. You've never used the paperless system before, whether it's Dot Loop or Transaction Desk or whatever the heck it is. You haven't used that before. You don't even know what you're supposed to say, what you're supposed to do. There's so much information that has to be learned in a short amount of time. So sometimes not sometimes, all the time, that learning curve is very steep for a new agent. And so, again, that can be perceived as that overwhelm when you're getting started in this business. So you keep that in mind, and you're going to learn it over time. It just relax. So yeah, you just got that pressure. But regardless of either, you've got to be hungry. You got to be driven to make this work, and you got to be disciplined. Those things have to happen for you to make this, because I think real estate is too hard for someone to just come in and do this casually. Like, oh, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, whether you're part-time or full-time, you have to do it with purpose.
And people get attracted to this industry because there is a lot of money to be made in it, but it's not made easily.
And every single thing you read or see, TV shows, whatever, all make it look easy.
Yeah.
All
you
make
just
it
show
look
up to a party and people, let's put that thing in escrow, and like
deals fall out of the sky.
Yeah.
You're buying $6 million penthouses in LA and all this stuff. Like,
yeah, it's just ridiculous. So it's ridiculous how easy they make it look, and it is. There's a lot of work to it. It is fulfilling work. It is great to do. It's a great industry to get involved in, but it's not. Nothing's going to be easy.
no.
And if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. And sometimes it feels like everybody is in real estate, but I can guarantee you most of them aren't making money.
That's where the importance of a good coach and a good mentor just makes so much of a difference, because they can direct you where to spend your time and energy, and all the fluff out there and there's a ton of it, where not to spend time and energy on.
What's interesting though is when I'm in coaching situations, what I tell agents is not what they want to hear. Right, in terms of like what their activities need to be. Because a lot of agents just want to do social media, or they just want to go to coffees with their friends. And not that those things are inherently bad, but the majority of your focused energy needs to be on that lead generation, things that are going to create cash flow. And so a lot of agents, when it's time to level with them as a coach and get them directed and not distracted with things that don't make them money, a lot of times they don't want to hear it.
Well, I mean, the first thing they want to do is set up their Instagram, build a website, do this, do that. And that doesn't matter. Like it
not
doesn't,
at the beginning, it doesn't matter.
Not at the beginning. No. And like focus time and energy on lead generation, get a few sales under your belt, and then work on those things. Like there's time for that.
Oh, absolutely. If all you did was be like, hey, I just sold when you sell them, but people just spend so much time. It's like, well, I need to get my website together. I'm like, no, you don't. You need to focus on lead generation.
Yeah. I mean, they want to spend so much time in getting that perfected before they even make a phone call to their sphere to say, hey, I'm an agent now.
Yeah. What do you think that is? Is it just the appearance of, it's like, well, if somebody looks for me, I want them to see that I'm doing this.
That they feel like a fraud. Like if I make a bunch of phone calls saying I'm an agent now, and then someone Googles me and they see I don't have a web page, or my Instagram's not looking pretty or whatever, then they're going to think I'm not a real agent.
Do you think that's a reality?
No.
Okay.
No. I think that starts to become more important as you are an unknown to the people you were working with.
Right.
But early on, we're teaching you to pick up the phone and call people you know.
Yeah.
And call for sale by owners who probably won't Google you after that phone call.
Right.
If you make a good impression, they're going to invite you to come by to have a chat, and you're going to make that impression in person, and then they're going to decide to use you or not.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I'm not saying that those things aren't, don't have some relevance in terms of like you having some sort of online presence, but I can almost guarantee you're probably spending too much time on it.
They're super powerful tools, but just use your time wisely at the beginning.
Yeah. So fundamentals of success, if you're doing this part-time, this is one that's real big that I tell people who are part-time making the transition. You're going to work in like sprints. Like what I say is like, hey, look, let's kill it for 30 days. And then I want you to take like a long weekend after that. But the important thing is that you've got to communicate with your significant other, with your husband or your wife, be like, hey, listen, I'm going to be focused on this. Because by the way, you are taking on a whole other thing, right? It's going to require an immense amount of focus. We've talked about the learning curve being steep, and you've got to communicate with the people around you that this thing is happening and that you're not going to be maybe as mentally present, emotionally present, physically present if you're out on appointments after 5 p.m. If you're not communicating that on the front end and getting agreement from everybody that that's what's happening, it's always going to be a rub, and you're always going to feel this sort of like, oh, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So what I say is like, hey, look, plan a long weekend, a 3-day weekend where you go out of town or something, and at the end of this 30-day sprint, and let's focus and get some momentum going. Yeah. So, but that communication is going to be incredibly important with your significant other and your kids and the people that are around you.
Yeah, your family needs to be on board. And you can build a business that you aren't tied to a device and you aren't sitting in open houses on Saturdays and Sundays. Mm-hmm. But that takes time. And that business building process is years, not days. So, there's going to be a period of time where you are probably a little less available in order to build a business in which you have more freedom.
Right. The other thing is, you really want to, this is one of the things that's like an identity thing. And I don't know that, and we may have talked about this before, but you have to shape or how you perceive yourself needs to change. So instead of being, I'm someone that needs to learn time management, if you start to identify as an expert in time management, if you start to identify as an expert in prioritization or someone that is a very organized person, that's going to help you versus you being yourself and trying to learn something new. It's like, just start identifying. It's kind of like when you're taking on like a workout program. If you identify as a fit person versus someone who is just going to the gym, it needs to become a part of your identity. So that's important to start shaping yourself both as a real estate agent and as an effective real estate agent, to identify yourself as a person who is organized and is really good at time management, is really good at priority, and is someone who embraces and learns new things.
Yep, totally agree.
Because you hit certain limiting beliefs, I think, with people who go, well, I'm just not that type of person. I'm not good at technology. I'm not good at time management. I'm not good at talking to people. I'm not good at starting conversations out of thin air. I'm not good at small talk, right? All of those things are really limiting beliefs. If you start to change your identity as someone who is those things, that's going to be super helpful in your overall success. And just understand that the pitfall, some of the pitfalls are just really it's the overwhelm. You're just learning something new and you're taking on all of this information. The learning curve is steep. Everything is new, and you're drinking from a fire hose, and everybody wants it. And like, it's never really going to be bite-sized. I think at the beginning of real estate, really for the first 6 months.
That's correct.
There's just too much
to learn, and like you said it before, it's too much experience driven. Like you have to go through some of these things or have a mentor there that has gone through them to really guide you.
Right. And one of the things that I'll say about your mentor, or you do need someone to walk with you. And that's something that we cultivate at our real estate company is, mentorship and training and all of those things. I do think that there are a lot of people who want someone to like really take them by the hand and, put them in their pocket and go on appointments and shadow and all that stuff. And really what you have to do as someone who is learning is you have to take action first. And the mentor is going to pay a lot more attention to you when you're taking action versus if you're just sitting there waiting for something to happen or puppy dogging somebody.
Yeah. I mean, if you have a broker or a coach, think about it. Are you an A student or are you an F student?
Right.
Are they going to pay more attention to you if you're interested and you're working hard and you're doing
showing
the
up.
things, you're showing up and you're doing the things that they're asking you to do? They're obviously going to pay more attention to you. So just make sure that you're working hard and taking action and doing the things that they're guiding you on, and you're going to get all the attention you want.
Yeah. Number one, show up. You'd be amazed at how many people just don't do that. And then from there, it's like be engaged, be active, follow the things, communicate where you're having struggles, and that's going to ultimately end up in your success as a real estate agent.
You're going to make so many mistakes. Like that's not something to worry about early on. It's just taking action, moving the ball forward, and you'll learn a lot from your experiences.
Well, I do want to zero in on that. You are going to make so many mistakes.
So many. And none of them are life-threatening. None of them are going to put you in prison, despite what the real estate test might tell you.
Yeah.
Yes, you can get sued. It's possible, but that's why you have E&O insurance.
Yeah.
There are, most of the time, those are reserved for situations where someone was being intentionally deceitful.
Yeah. That's exactly right.
I mean, these contracts are written in such a way where they're largely fill in the blank.
Yeah, very true. So yeah, a lot of the things that you're scared of, and I know you know if you got out of real estate school recently, or if you're in your first year of real estate, the idea of legal, like anybody mentioning an attorney, scares the heck out of you. But I can promise you, in 15 years of real estate, it is not as bad as you think it is. Most of those situations are very easily remedied. Have a coach, a mentor that you can reach out to verify, to check on things, to make sure you're on the right track and taking the right action, and you're going to be successful. Yep. All right. So to recap, you can do this part-time, and you can make that transition over time. Stay focused, embrace that new identity of being an organized, effective, experienced person. And go get them.
Yeah. I might argue that some of the skills you learn doing this part-time are so important to actually doing it full-time in the end. So
that's a really good point.
Just if you're able to time block and manage your time in such a way to do this part-time and do it effectively, think about what you can accomplish as a full-time agent.
For sure.
So yeah, thanks for joining us.
All right,
like
guys.
And subscribe.
Yeah, thank you. Yep. Again, like and subscribe. Comment, give us your questions, and
we'll see you next week.
Yeah.
21.
Okay.
All right. Thanks.